Yo, what's good, y'all? Ty Butler in the house. I'm gonna be honest, man. I'm just trying to have some fun with these sounds. Before we get to the show, you see, I got my Jet shirt on. We're not talking football, really today, but I'm just having fun with some of these sounds. Maybe change it up a little bit. See what we got cooking over here on StreamYard. Yo, follow me at Ty D Butler. We are live on YouTube and on Twitter. Getting it popping right now. Talking some basketball. Which we will get into the Knicks losing last night in Cleveland. And if the regular season actually matters, are we overreacting? But don't mind me. I'm just having some fun. Some of these sounds right here. Just experimenting. Just seeing what's up. I don't really like any of that. Yeah, we gotta get some more, man. We gotta get some more music on here. Here's the original sound that you guys usually hear. Tap in, man. I want to hear from y'all in the comments. Talking basketball today. Yankees and the Mets getting started. So baseball on the horizon. We've got football, as we enter the combine and the draft. That's going to be a topic going forward. Here's the thing, man. And sometimes I feel like an outsider in this space, in this regard. There are so many people who get excited about like press conferences. Like I came across a bunch of folks on my timeline that were like, yo, Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji, Joe Shane, John Harbaugh are going to be talking to the media on Tuesday at 1:00. And I just don't I can't manufacture that same enthusiasm. Like I just can't get excited about press conferences ever. But more importantly, because yesterday, and again, we're going to talk some basketball, but yesterday, we just flagrantly had a leader of the Giant organization and a leader of the Jet organization just lying to us. Just lying. Joe Shane's just yeah, my job hasn't really changed. And we know he's lying, as illustrated by everything that has happened since John Harbaugh's come on board. And Aaron Glenn's trying to spin his way out of what I feel is valid criticism and great job by the media contingent. Some questions that we want answers to, like, hey, man, so why exactly did you go through all of those coaching staff changes so deep into the offseason? And he's like, yeah, that was the plan. There's no way that was the plan. And the idea that Wink Martindale, who was just pen to paper signature away from being your defensive coordinator, all of a sudden pulls out, and it's because it just so happens that he didn't want the job anymore. All throughout the process, you were like, I'm going to be the defensive coordinator. I'm going to call the plays. But he was still interested. No one buys that. No one buys that Woody Johnson didn't interfere. So you just got the general manager, or that's his title, the guy who is supposed to be the general manager for the Giants, and the head coach of the Jets just spewing a bunch of lies. And I guess because, it's where our country is now, where we just get to lie to people in public. And the more you repeat it, the more it becomes believable. I just don't have any interest in that. So, yeah, I did a stream last night where I discussed some of my biggest takeaways from the Jet standpoint. I'm a Jet fan. I got my Jet shirt on today. But I just don't get too caught up in the press conferences. And when you've just got people just in your face as it's raining, telling you, no, it's actually sunny, I just can't get into that. So hit us up in the comments. Hit me up on Twitter at Ty D Butler. streaming live on YouTube as well. Um, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit me up on TikTok. You know the deal. Let's talk about the Knicks last night because there are a couple of questions that I had as I'm watching the game. I'm thinking to myself, this can't be happening again. You get blown out last Thursday in Detroit. You're down 18 in the fourth quarter Saturday night against the Rockets. And to your credit, you come back. You had a nail-biting victory against the Bulls. I think the Bulls are like 0-10 in their last 10 games. And then last night, you get bludgeoned by the Cavs. And so, like, as we're gearing up for what you hope to be, if you're a Knicks fan, a deep playoff run, like, this is what you're getting from this team. And I just don't know how you feel like the utmost confidence, especially because, like, it would be different if this were OKC and we're like, all right, won the title last year. We're just going through the motions. And Draymond Green, who I know Knicks fans don't love, and I don't love him myself, but like I listened to his podcast last week and he talked about like, yo, sometimes, especially as you age, it's just hard to get up for a Tuesday night game in Sacramento. And that's just natural. You get it. When you have a long regular season, it happens in baseball. Like those things tend to take place and it's understandable. But it typically is more accepted from champions. Like if the Nuggets in the aftermath of their championship run did this, or the Celtics last year, you understand it. And we afford those teams the benefit of the doubt. But when the best thing on your resume is an Eastern Conference Finals appearance, which is the first one that you had in 25 years, I just don't quite understand how like we can just afford them they'll turn it on. These games really don't matter in the grand scheme of things. And part of it comes because of the teams that you think are going to be in it. Detroit, inexperienced. We beat them last year. The Celtics, we beat them they are experienced, but we beat them. You've got the Cavs, we've beaten them. And so like there's no clear-cut team that you are so deathly afraid of. And that's whether it's because you've already proven you can beat them in the playoffs or you just don't trust them altogether, like the Raptors or the Sixers, who you've also beaten in the playoffs. But I just think that there's a flaw in that kind of logic, especially because the goal is to win a championship. And we're now talking about the Knicks, who, yes, they're 12-4 in their last 16 games. And so part of it does feel like we're overreacting. But again, blown out in Detroit, down 18 in the fourth quarter against the Rockets. That's a one possession game with 30 seconds left to go against Chicago. And then you just got smacked around in the second half last night by Cleveland. What is the takeaway supposed to be? Is it, as I put here in the title, does the regular season even matter? And I was listening to Bill Simmons and Zach Lowe talk about this. What was it, on Monday when I'm shoveling the snow off my car? It's snowing again in New York City, by the way. Like, just quick aside, when we get to early August and it's 110 degrees outside, no one complain. No one complain because this is as bad as a winter as we've had in quite some time. That blizzard was like the worst we've had in a decade, but it's not just the snowstorm. We've had multiple, and now it's snowing again. It's crazy here in New York City. But anyway, back to, I was listening to Simmons and Lowe on the podcast on Monday, and they had this conversation about like how much the regular season and how much seeding matters. And I couldn't disagree with them more when they said, it's more about matchup. Because as someone who, I think I've been at like every Knicks playoff game the last 3 years. Like there is a legitimate home court advantage in that building. It's up there with like Oklahoma City and Denver. Like it is clearly one of the best home courts in the NBA. And that stuff matters to me, not just because the Knicks obviously this year are better at home, but like the road splits, they're one game above 500 on the road. So of all these teams that we talk about in the conference, like who do you trust most to win a big time road game? Just based on what we've seen so far during the regular season, it's not the Knicks. In fact, let's just look at, and I'll pull it up because we have the ability to do that. Because sometimes you just like overwhelming people with numbers, and like it's a little bit of a disservice if they can't see what you're talking about. And so since we have the ability, let's pull it up. And I want to focus on this column right here, away. And again, it might not be the end all be all, but it's something that should be factored into any conversation we're having about the postseason. So you've got the Pistons at 20-7 on the road. The Celtics, who won again last night, who they play? The Suns, no Jaylen Brown. They're 20-10 on the road. You've got the Cavs at 17-11, the Raptors at 18-10, and then the Sixers at 17-11. So of all the teams in your top six who are just right now in the playoffs, the only one of those teams who doesn't have a winning record on the road would be your New York Knicks. And maybe you just think that that doesn't matter. I would happen to disagree, because if I'm playing a game 5 or a game 7 in Detroit or in Cleveland, or even in Boston, if Tatum gets back, how do I, going into that, feel comfortable with this Knicks group based on what I've seen during the regular season? Now, again, the answer to that could just be you don't care about the regular season. And maybe you're right. Maybe the Knicks, because of the temperature being turned down on how important the regular season is, and we don't have to just go for it every single night the way that we did with Tibbs, maybe that philosophical change has like seeped into the brains of the Knick fan who just looks big picture. But again, we are talking about a team that, while they might be more successful in recent history than Detroit, Cleveland, and let's just throw in Toronto and Philadelphia, still haven't been to the finals. Like their best year is they've won 2 playoff series. So I just think that sometimes we treat it with the attitude of they're a proven group. The way we would talk about a championship Celtics team, or the way we would talk about a championship Nuggets or Thunder team. And there's a flaw in that, because the Knicks haven't even been to the finals. They have not been to the finals. And so if you ask me today, like, are there concerns and should we have our antennas up just about certain things that we're watching? The Knicks are, when they play their best, a great team. And they're also very talented, which is why, like, as much as I will complain about things that I don't find to be ideal, the reason why I don't want to quit them is because they're just too talented. They're too talented. But if we can get into, how many times are we going to, the very next day after a Knick game, come on here and say, man, could you believe Cat only had X amount of shot attempts? So he's 5 for 5 in this game yesterday. And I think there's a lot of blame to go at. So let's start, when we just break down this game in particular. We can start with Cat. I don't come away from yesterday's game thinking the person I'm angriest at is Towns. I thought he looked very tough last night, and you can laugh at that, but like, we've questioned his toughness against these bigger teams, against the best teams. He showed toughness last night. I thought his decision making was decisive. He had a plan of attack, and he was just like, "Yo, I'm going to the basket." And what that allows for the rest of the game is teams now have to be cognizant of that. And then he's one, as he tells you, he's one of the best, and he says he's the best, but he's one of the best 3-point shooting bigs of all time. And once he's rolling, you just remember, oh yeah, there's a reason why he's the former number 1 overall pick. And so I look at the shot attempts, and yes, like if Shaq's doing the post game show, he'll say you got to go in there and demand the ball. But some of that to me has to be on coaching. I watched the Knicks score 11 points in that third quarter yesterday, which essentially lost them the game. They scored 11 points in the third quarter. And look, I sometimes get really annoyed when coaches don't have an adjustment to what their game plan is. And if you watch the Knicks, you understand that what they typically like to do as far as like staggering the minutes of Brunson and Cat, Brunson will play the entirety of the first and third quarter. Cat will sub out about midway or just under midway through those quarters, and then he's playing the entirety of the second and the fourth, assuming there's no foul trouble. But in that third quarter, as you're watching the Knicks score 11 points, I'm thinking to myself, hey, Mike Brown, like, wouldn't it make sense to sometimes deviate from what our plan is? I know what we like to do. I know our substitution patterns, for the most part, should take precedence over like just being, what's the word I'm looking for? Not urgency, but panicking. But as I'm watching my offense that outscored the Cavs in the second quarter, mainly because Cat was awesome, we're struggling to get buckets in the third. Jalen doesn't have it. What did he finish? 5 of 18 or 6 of 19? Shouldn't I just get Cat back into the game? Like, here's a big spot because Cat turned the Rockets game around. And yes, Alvarado's defense and he hit a couple of shots, and Shaman hit some shots. But the presence of Towns changed that Rockets game. So if I'm struggling to score points, why am I not allowed to just deviate from my substitution pattern? Why do I got to watch the Cavs double us up in points when I've got Cat, who of anyone on offense to this point has looked the most comfortable, and he completely changed things. So that's where I'll blame the coaching, because we focus on, oh, he doesn't have enough plays drawn up for him. Screw that. If we want to talk about plays drawn up, this is where I blame the captain of the team, the lead guard, the point guard. Jalen Brunson's got to get Cat more involved. Like, you're watching, and look, Bridges hit a couple of shots in that third, but yo, at some point, it's like, in order for us to get to the, and this is why you may not love the messenger, you may not be in sync with the delivery of the message, and because the show itself is so polarizing where you either love it or you hate it. When Shaq's having that conversation with Cat, what was it, the Saturday night game, right, against the Rockets, and he's telling him he has to dominate in order for the Knicks to win, and Cat is like, I don't care about dominating as long as we win. The reason why what Shaq is saying has to resonate, not just because this dude's a freaking champion, right? Like, he's a 4-time champ. He's a league MVP. He's one of the greatest centers, one of the most dominant players the the league has ever seen, right? But the reason why it has to resonate is because there are a lot of people on Knicks Twitter who are like, see, this is the type of stuff we hate. Shaq and Chuck, they're haters, and they're old school and they can't adapt. There is not a single person who disagrees with the premise of that statement. Everyone would agree that in order for the Knicks to get to the promised land, right, a big part of that is Karl Anthony Towns. Brunson is your best player, and because history tells us so, we expect him come the postseason to ball out. And yes, Alvarado, what he can do defensively, what he can do like tempo-wise, Awesome. Mitchell Robinson, he's a get it. Like we can run through the roster and discuss all the ways these other guys are going to be impactful and can be impactful. There is no running from if Towns is not great, the Knicks cannot win 4 playoff rounds. That is just an objective fact. And so, again, we may not love the messenger. The show is polarizing. People either love it or hate it. But we all agree with Shaq as he's talking to Cat and saying, listen, man, because of your, and it's because we also value and understand your level of greatness. If you are not going to be the Cat that we know at his apex is a second All NBA second team guy, an all-star, and doing it consistently with precision, with decisiveness, and rebounding. He had a block shot last night. Cat, I like again, I don't blame last night on Cat. Maybe he's got a demand for the ball more. But no one disagrees with what Shaq said, which is why it is frustrating. So after a game like that, you circle on your calendar. I was excited. I'm not a Cavs or a Knicks fan. I just love basketball. I had Pistons Spurs Monday night. This is coming. So Saturday night, actually, you can go back further than that, right? So you had Pistons Knicks Thursday night. I forget what the Friday night game was. But Saturday night, you've got Rockets, Knicks. Sunday, you had Thunder, Cavs. You had Knicks, Celtics. Like, you had all these games, right? Into Monday, Spurs, Pistons yesterday. So we've had a nice stretch of just great games. So I'm excited about this one. It should matter. It should be important for both teams. Send a message and just like a measuring stick. And Cat takes 5 shots. Something's wrong with that. That's a coaching problem. That's the lead guard. The person running the offense has to say, here's what we're going to do. This dude's been balling. Let's get him the rock. And let's figure out how we can work around him. And if Mike Brown is too glued to his substitution pattern that he can't see that in that third quarter that lost the Knicks the game, we've got to get Cat back on the floor just to get our offense going so we're not down 21 points. That's just on him, man. And he's got to be accountable for that. So last night was frustrating. It was a game that the Knicks very well could have won. It's not like the Cavs were great. I thought they were great on defense, but that's a game that should not have been a blowout, and it's one that the Knicks could have escaped with the W. The Cavs let them back in it, but every time the Knicks go on a run, here comes the Cavs scoring. The Knicks defense wasn't great yesterday. They're turning the ball over, and I just thought it was just frustrating to watch. Let's get to some of your comments. Bad coaching. Mitch has more shots than Cat Flummox. So this was a point I wanted to bring up. Spike, I appreciate you talking about this. All right, so I want to pull up for you guys. We're gonna go through.
Finish this bucket on your own.
Enjoy your new car.
The players on the Knicks, and this is the column we're gonna focus on: field goal attempts. So the players on the Knicks who had as many or more shot attempts than Cat in this game yesterday. Now, part of it is he didn't really only shoot the ball 5 times. He got fouled on a couple of those. So those obviously don't count as shot attempts. But it's jarring. All right, so OG Anunoby. We're going to count the guys who played yesterday who had as many or more shot attempts than Cat, despite the fact that Cat, I thought, was their best offensive player. So OG's got more shot attempts than Cat. Josh Hart's got more shot attempts than Cat. Bridges, more shot attempts than Cat. Brunson, understandably, more shot attempts than Cat. So now Diawara, as many shot attempts as Cat. That's 5. Mitchell Robinson, who I thought was great last night. 16 rebounds. Awesome. That's 6. Got more shot attempts than Cat. Shamet, just as many. So 7 guys of the 1, 2, 3, 4. So I guess this would be 7 of the 11 guys who shot the ball last night had as many or more shot attempts than Cat, and that's just inexcusable. It's inexcusable. In a game of that magnitude, one that you really had a chance to win, and I still disagree with people when they say seeding doesn't matter. I think the seeding matters. I think you want to get home court. I respect the hell out of that Knick crowd and how they show up for playoff games. They show up for regular season games, but haven't been at the Garden. I think the last 3 years I've been at every home playoff game. I just respect the hell out of it. And so if I can get games 5 and 7 of a playoff series in that building, I'm just going for it. And right now, if you take a look at the standings, the Knicks and the Cavs are tied for the 3rd spot. Cleveland loses. Let me just make sure they don't play again the rest of the season. So it's that game last night. They don't get the Cavs. Yeah, so Cleveland, and this is gonna stink for the Cavs. Remember that Christmas Day game where they had no business losing, but they allowed the Knicks to come back and win. So because Cleveland loses the season series, they've got to finish ahead of the Knicks from a win-loss standpoint. But they're both now tied for the 3 seed. And then you've got the Raptors just kind of hanging there. Oh, Raptors, they losing overtime to OKC last night. They're 2 games back of the Knicks, and the Knicks and the Raptors will play coming up soon. So all that to say, you're not getting the 1 seed, obviously. You're 8 games back in the standings, which really is 9 because they swept you. So you got to finish ahead of them. The Celtics, you're 3 games back. That's possible. That's doable. But Boston's rolling right now. They've won 9 of the last 10. So it's going to be hard to catch them. You're in a battle with the Cavs for that 3 seed. And the 3 seed is important because it would delay you playing Detroit until the conference finals. And then it gives you room to have like all your momentum going into a conference final series. There's also room to have Detroit get clocked by somebody in an earlier round. And then if you do get the Pistons in the conference finals, I just think that there's an element of, like, as good as Detroit is, there is going to be some pressure that comes from, we're 1 playoff series win away from going to the finals, and that's heavy. Like winning a first round series, winning the second round series, those are achievements, especially for a Pistons organization that hasn't won a playoff round since 2008. But you didn't get to the conference finals, and it's like, all right, it's 4 teams left. Something's going on in the West. If we win this series, we're advancing to the NBA Finals to play whoever wins that Western Conference final. Like, that's heavy. And then a lot of the pressure begins to creep in, and we're back to talking about experience. And the Knicks were in the conference finals last year. They lost it, but they at least had that experience, whereas the Pistons wouldn't. Outside of some of their guys who have playoff experience, right? And so, like, seeding's important for that reason. So you gotta stave off the Cavs, who all of a sudden have been rejuvenated. They've got James Harden up in there. Keon Ellis has been a tremendous addition. I thought he played well last night. You got to stay out of that 4-5 matchup because I don't want Detroit in the second round. I just don't want that. Allow, like, one of those guys to get suspended, like to do something egregious and they get suspended. The 4-5 matchup, you're going to win. You're going to beat Toronto. You're going to beat Philadelphia. Like, the Knicks aren't getting bounced in the first round. The only way they potentially get bounced in the first round is if they somehow get matched up with Cleveland, which would mean both the Cavs and the Knicks allow the Raptors to overtake them for that 3 seed, which I don't see that happening. Or one of Cleveland on the Knicks pummels, they drop to 6, and then it's a 3-6 matchup, which, again, I don't see that happening. But you got to stay out of that 4-5 matchup. Things get a little dicey there. And if you're in the 2-3, then you're going to play the Sixers or the Magic. You'll win that series. And then I think you'll beat Boston. I think the Knicks will beat the Celtics. I think the Celtics, this version of them, they're a regular season team. The teams that I would worry about if I'm a Knicks fan are the Pistons and the Cavs because I think that they're legit. We do also have to account for something like this happening, which none of us has ever seen before. James Harden choking in a big playoff moment. We've never seen that happen. Let me get to some of your comments. You're better looking than Mikal Bridges. Thank you. I appreciate that. Kevin's working 96. I don't think we should be saying season over after every L, but the regular season matters for this team with us having so many questions with Brown and his group. Yeah, it's also having games at MSG, the biggest games of the series at MSG. I think that's important. Mike Brown, it's year one for him. This has a little bit of a Joe Girardi to Aaron Boone feel. This has a little bit of that feel when the Yankees in 17 got bounced in the championship series and then went to Girardi, and then in 18 they got bounced in the division series, which was not great. But this has a little bit of that feel to it where there's so much pressure on whoever takes over for the guy who in some ways overachieved the year before, because that's like that gets lost. Like the Knicks did overachieve last year. No one thought they were going to beat the Celtics, including yours truly. I said there was no chance they beat the Celtics. They did that. Tibbs got them to a place where no one thought they could get to, similar to Girardi getting that young baby Bombers team to the Game 7 of the championship series against the Astros, and then they let him go, just like the Knicks let Tibbs go. And we were never able to really duplicate that level of success until, 6 years into his tenure where the Yankees went to the World Series against the Dodgers. So you're hoping that those parallels don't go too far. Cool KT 13 says, with Towns going 5 for 5, there's zero excuse for Brown to tell the team next 5 shots are going to come from Towns. Even if you don't put it that way, you can design an offense that on the fly can adjust and say, look, we don't necessarily have to say all of our shots are going to come from Towns. It's we want him to run the offense right now. We're going to play through him. And I thought in that third quarter, as they're struggling, having him glued to the bench was a mistake because it essentially lost him the game. Lost in the game. I think it's past time to look at the placement in the players. I think the Knicks need to start evaluating this team after this year. See, that's going too far. Because this is where like people like me get put in a bad spot because I argue that the regular season matters. But then when you have someone on such like the opposite end of the spectrum, it's such an extreme point where it's like, we're done. Let's look forward to next year. It allows for those who thinks that the regular season doesn't matter to put a hole in your argument because you're just arguing with an extremist. And I think that that's too extreme. I don't think the Knicks are drawing dead in the postseason. In fact, I picked them to win the East. I'm going to stand by that prediction, though I don't love the fact that they got swept by the Pistons. I would still, because of how much talent they have, and because of all the respect I have for Jalen Brunson, I would not be punting emotionally on them making a run here. Like, I think that that's going too far. Keep your comments rolling in here. At Ty D. Butler. I appreciate y'all. Whether you're checking in on YouTube or on Twitter, we are getting it popping here. At Ty D. Butler on all of your streaming platforms, YouTube and Twitter. At Ty D. Butler on all your social media platforms. Get at me. Get at your boy. Talking some basketball right now. This is fun. Once you get past all of the tanking stuff, how to fix the regular season, like the All-Star game that actually ended up being entertaining, you get to this part of the season where like there is some high-level hoops being played, and I just found myself last night thinking they just get me to the playoffs. Like that's how good the basketball has been. Like elite level play between great teams. Spurs, Pistons Monday, Knicks, Rockets. You had Thunder Cavs and by the way, Case and Wallace, what he's doing for Oklahoma City, it's just incredible. Like they just have so many guys, and that's why it makes conversations like this sometimes feel um just feel pointless because you watch Oklahoma City and you're like, man, is anyone beating that team 4 times out of 7? Well, I think in the West, the Nuggets, if they can get healthy, yeah, they can beat them 4 times out of 7. The problem is, I've been saying that for 3 months now because the Nuggets can't get healthy. Jokic was hurt. Cam Johnson was hurt. You're dealing with the Aaron Gordon injury. Like he's been injured all year. Peyton Watts, everyone just keeps getting hurt for the Nuggets. And I played that game before. You keep going to the well of, well, once they get healthy, they'll be fine. And then like the 2021 Nets, you realize, actually, no. The 2022 Nets, it's like, actually, no, they weren't fine because they could never get healthy. Like if you're just hurt all year long, why am I to believe that all of a sudden when the playoffs come around, you're going to be healthy? So I'm not feeling great about my Nuggets to win the West prediction just because of their health situation. But again, we'll couch it as this. If they do get healthy, I think the Nuggets are good enough to beat Oklahoma City. San Antonio, if we just remove the whole, well, they're not ready yet because they're too young, remove that, they can beat Oklahoma City. The problem is you can't remove that because playoff experience is a big thing. But those are the only two teams I think, or the only three teams I think could win the West: San Antonio, Oklahoma City, and Denver. Houston's got too many issues in the half court, and it explains why they blow so many games late. Not having a true point guard, floor general, and we're just gonna run everything through Kevin Durant. And look, it's a good bet because he's one of the greatest players ever, but that's just not a good plan. Like you need a better flow to your offense than just we're gonna give it to KD or we're gonna give it to Shingun at the top of the key, and he's just gonna back you down for 20 seconds. So that's why a great defense will be able to figure that out. The Lakers, man, I wish my boys could contend, but you watched them last night. You get a chance, go back and watch the last 5 seconds of Lakers Magic last night. That was not fun at all. Minnesota, I guess was it a Timberwolves fan who hit me up the other day and was like, "Yo, don't sleep on my Wolves." Minnesota's just consistently there in the conversation area. Problem is, it's the same thing. Playoff Rudy, playoff Randall, and are you going to get enough contribution from guys not named Anthony Edwards to win 3 playoff rounds in that conference? And the question is uh, posed every year, and you just get stymied because you just don't think that's going to happen. You just don't believe it's going to happen. So I look, the Wolves, that's a great team, but I don't know if they can come out of the West. They're going to be a pain to beat in the series. I like Nuggets Wolves would be the first round series, and I'm not sure I'd pick Denver because I mean Minnesota's obviously had success against the Nuggets in the past in the playoffs, but right now I don't know that I'd pick Denver to win that series, especially because Minnesota is just a pain to play. They're going to be a pain for anyone. But of the teams I think could come out the West, OKC, San Antonio, and Denver, if healthy, everyone else to me is drawing dead. In the Eastern Conference, I could see Detroit winning the East. I could see the Knicks winning the East. I could see the Cavs winning the East. And I guess, like, depending on how Tatum looks when he does come back, if and when he does come back, maybe there's a case for the Celtics. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. It's gonna be a fun postseason. I think every series we get at round 2 and later, it's just gonna be incredible. So I'm looking forward to that. Kevin Zwicker 96 says, I feel like the pressure is getting to guys like Cat and Bridges because if they don't get it done this year, they know Giannis rumors are going to be really loud and they'll be the names going out. Yeah, I talked about that. Um, Absolutely. And it's unnatural to just not pay attention to it. Like if you know Giannis is lingering this offseason. And maybe he ends up staying in Milwaukee. But for two, like after this, the finals is over. Or actually, how about this? Let's just assume the Knicks don't win the championship. Whenever their season ends, the conversation from that point going forward is going to be about Giannis. It's going to be about Giannis. And so Bridges and Cat are smart enough to understand this could be my last playoff run with this team. This could be my only chance. And does that pressure get to them in a playoff series? Maybe. If you're not mentally tough enough, that could wipe you out. Because those are going to be the two names mentioned the most in these trade discussions. You're hoping it doesn't happen, but the reality is, yeah, those are going to be the names mentioned. And so if it affects them, the Knicks are drawing dead because you need a locked in and engaged Cat, and you need Bridges to be impactful, even if he's not giving you 20 a game. It's like, all right, make those plays you did against the Celtics in that series last year that helped us advance. Cool. KT13 says, I would have thought this, but last night game shows there was something bigger. Towns going 5-5. Shouldn't have felt pressure. Seems like Brown's lost the locker. I don't think he's lost the locker. See, this is where I think you go too far. This was not Towns feeling pressured. I think if you're watching the game, Bridges was having his way. So let's just go back to the play-by, and maybe this is not the most fun thing to do. But in that third quarter, and you know Towns is going to get his rest in the third quarter. But in that third quarter, if you're watching the flow of the game, the Knicks scored 11 points in the quarter, which is insane, right? In that third quarter, you had Brunson get fouled. He goes 1 of 2. You had Cat have a turnover. So the ball is in Cat's hand. He turns it over. You had Bridges miss a pull-up jump shot. You had Bridges miss a layup and then get the offensive rebound, miss a shot. You had OG hit a 3. You then had Brunson miss a pull-up shot after a timeout. You then had Bridges miss a pull-up shot. So now we're getting to the point where the Cavs are building this lead, and you're hearing a lot of Bridges. These shots should be going to Cat. So that's not about him wiltering because of the pressure. That's just a game management issue that is on everyone. It's on the coach, it's on Brunson, and it's on Cat. Like, get him the ball. He was the best offensive player last night, and he's got 5 shots to show for it. And we named 7 guys who had as many or more shot attempts than Cat. That just can't happen in a game of that magnitude. It just can't. And so they'll have their opportunity to pick up some wins here, to pacify folks, make them feel good. They've got Milwaukee this coming Friday in Milwaukee. The Bucks been playing a lot better lately. They've won 4 of their last 5 games. Not bad. They've won 7 out of their last 9 games. So the Bucks, it's not going to be an easy game, but the Knicks should win. You've got San Antonio. That's at home this Sunday, the marquee matchup on ABC. That should be a fun one. The Spurs have been rolling. They beat the hell out of the Pistons a couple of nights ago, so that's going to be a fun one. And a rematch from the NBA Cup, also a rematch from, remember that New Year's Eve game that was high scoring where Champagne just went off with San Antonio and they beat the Knicks. Then you go to Toronto. You're home for Oklahoma City. We don't know if SGA and Jalen Williams are going to play in that game. We have no idea if they're going to play in that game. But that'll be the second of a back-to-back. At Toronto, home for Oklahoma City. Then you go on the West Coast, at Denver, at Los Angeles, at Los Angeles. So Lakers, Clippers, Utah, Indiana, and then you come home for Golden State. Steph should be back by then, right? Indiana. So then the schedule will ease up with Indiana, Brooklyn, Washington, New Orleans, Charlotte. So there's a 6-game win streak in there for the Knicks before another tough part of your schedule at OKC, at Houston, Memphis, Chicago. And then the last 3 games are going to have some significance because it's Boston, who you're battling for seeding with, Toronto, who you're battling for seeding with, and the Hornets might need that game for seeding purposes to end the season. So the Knicks are going to have a lot of wins in there. It's just a matter of trying to stave off the Cavs. Like, you can still get the 3 seed, but stave off the Cavs. You can't fall to that 4-5 matchup. Ty, man, if it's everyone's fault, it's then the coach's fault. Like a CEO, I'm not denying that. I just would not go as far as to say that the head coach of a team that right now is 37-22 and tied for the number 3 seed, that has won 12 of his last 16 games, has lost the locker room. I think that that's too far. I think that that's nuts. Yo, people got mad at me the other day when I put this tweet out. It's funny how sensitive y'all are. It's mad funny how sensitive you guys are. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna show you the tweet, and then tell me if it's crazy. Oh, it's a hot take. I wasn't willing to go there before, but I think Cade is better than Brunson. So this is what I said the other day, and people got so mad at me. The problem isn't getting mad. The problem is your expression of how mad you are. And so when you have people like, you're a good host, you don't have to troll to get famous. Okay, so you mean to tell me that it's trolling to say that Cade Cunningham, who is almost assuredly a lock for all NBA first team, he's going to finish higher than Brunson on the MVP ballot. He's like averaging a hair under what Brunson is on points this year. It's like less than a point. But averaging also more rebounds, more assists, beat him head-to-head 3 times, and plays on the best team in the Eastern Conference. I am trolling by saying Cade Cunningham is better than him? Like, that's just dishonest and disingenuous. Like, you cannot believe that. Here's another unserious one. Cade, you mean the number 1 draft pick? He's better than Brunson, the 2nd round pick. Okay, as if we've never seen 2nd round picks better than 1st round picks. Like, we've never seen the Jimmy Butlers and the Draymond Greens of the world be better than, I don't know, Darko Milicic. Okay, so that's where I know you're unserious. 0 playoff series wins. Okay, sure, he has to win a playoff series, but I'm talking about the basketball player himself, Wemby. So Wemby, who hasn't won a playoff series yet, we can't have him in the discussion for best players in the league. That's what you're telling me with this tweet. So I guess Wemby's not a top 5 player in the NBA because he's never won a playoff series. Got it. But this is why I don't argue with dummies. Sure, it looked like it tonight. Y'all fall for the hype all the time. Again, the hype is he is going to be first team All NBA. He is going to be a top 5 MVP candidate. What the hype? He's the number 1 overall pick. So we're falling for the hype. Yes, he's a great player. And he was bad against the Spurs. He was what, 5 for 25? He's not, and we will prove that again in the playoffs. Okay. You know what the problem with the whole, so everyone's better than Brunson until they have to be the Nick phraseology. Except Tyrese Halliburton. And like, you guys get funny with the whole cherry picking. So this means you're admitting Tyrese Halliburton is better than Brunson? Because Brunson eliminated Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Donovan Mitchell twice. Another thing, the Donovan Mitchell series with Utah and the Mavs, Luka was the best player. Now, Luka missed the first 3 games, but still ended up being the best player in that series. Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Cade Cunningham. Okay. Everyone's better than Jalen Brunson until it's time to be better than Jalen Brunson. Like Halliburton. Or just answering tweets. I'm going through my mentions here. Y'all needs to stop. Cade had a whole series to prove that and Jalen Brunson shut y'all up. There hasn't been a player that's outplayed Brunson in the series since he's been a Knick. Win or lose, there have been better teams like the Pacers and the Heat in their finals runs. I would argue that Tyrese Halliburton outplayed them last year because he wasn't a traffic cone on defense. I would also argue that Jimmy Butler and that the 2020 the 2023 playoff series. I'd argue he outplayed him, but sure, okay. People laughing at me. I didn't think that was a crazy take. Like, if you disagree with me, that's cool. If you think Jalen's better than K, that's fine. But acting like it's like out of this world to have one ahead of the other, I think it's just silly. Ty D Butler, that's where you can find me. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate y'all for hopping on today. Anytime news breaks, we'll get on here. Probably talk some baseball at some point this week. Do another NBA stream. If the Knicks somehow lose to the Bucks on Friday, we might have to do like an emergency stream because that would be a disaster. But anyway, follow me on all your social media platforms. I appreciate you guys. Peace and love.